All right, welcome back, folks. I am Jake Ellenbogen, and today I am finishing up this mini series. We talked about the Rams' offensive big board for free agency, the top 30, and now, because I could not, break it down into 25, we broke down 30 for offense. Now we got 30 for defense. Before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. You can follow me on social media at JKBogan everywhere. And let's dive into it. So number 30 here, not wasting any time, getting right into it. This is a player that I think is underrated. This is somebody that you will remember from the draft. You will remember because he was a decent name and a decent prospect. He bounced around from the Broncos, the Packers. I'm talking about Isaac Yiadom, okay? I've already mentioned him before. He was in the underrated video. I think potentially he might be the best under-the-radar corner no one is talking about. And I just think he has the perfect frame for the boundary when you look at it. Much improved last year. And I think a big thing with Yiadom is when you look at the Saints and losing a guy like Paulson Adebo to injury, the fact he was able to fill in nicely shows his ability in not only man coverage, which he's worked a ton at, but he's also pretty solid in zone, was the number 20th ranked zone coverage corner according to PFF. So look, I really like Yiadom. I think the Rams are looking for more of a boundary type, a guy with some length. He provides that. Good size for the position, good athleticism, sticks to the hip pocket, but can also turn around and try to make a play on the ball, which he did a few times last year. So I like Yiadom here. This is a bread and butter move for the Rams. They were to go after Yiadom. This would be in like the third wave of free agency. Wouldn't hurt the compensatory pick formula. I think keep an eye on him. He comes in at number 30. Number 29. I almost said 31, like an idiot. 29, sticking with cornerbacks here, Sean Murphy-Bunting also was part of that underrated video. 2022, very, very good season there for Sean Murphy-Bunting. For whatever reason, he did not get the market he was expecting, was forced to settle for a one-year prove-it deal in Tennessee, where he did not really prove it, okay? He had a rough time in Tennessee. It wasn't great. Christian Fulton, also his teammate, struggled. So Tennessee just didn't have a great year, and of course, Mike Vrabel ended up getting fired. They weren't a fit. The Rams might be. I think this guy works in zone. He can be used either as a cornerback on the boundary or in the slot. I like his versatility. I got Sean Murphy-Bunting at number 29. Number 28 here, we have Chiefs edge defender Michael Dana. Dana is somebody that is a fifth rounder out of Michigan who I kind of brushed off as kind of a rotational pass rusher, but recently he's really turned it on and he's become an actual piece for that defense with Steve Spagnuolo. He's very underrated, a quality young pass rusher. For him, he's not amazing. He's not going to move the needle if you're looking for an elite pass rusher, but we're not really sure what to make right now of the Rams. We know they're looking and they're monitoring the edge market. I think Dana comes in at 28 here because he's definitely good enough, but also you look at the age factor, playing big time, competition, obviously, with the Chiefs, being in Super Bowls. He's an intriguing option there for the Rams, comes in at 28. 27, we're going back to the underrated video. We're sticking with the underrated video. We're going to go to safety here. We're going to talk about Ryan Neal. Very similar to Sean Murphy-Bunting, except for the fact Ryan Neal actually went to Sean Murphy-Bunting's former team and did not do well. But also, Sean Murphy-Bunting had a really good 2022. Ryan Neal was arguably the best safety in 2022, okay? Had to fill in injuries, of course. Jamal Adams has had a hard time staying healthy. So Ryan Neal fit right in there like a glove. He was elite. He was great in coverage. He was great in the run. He could blitz. I mean, this guy really had the whole total package. For whatever reason, Seattle didn't bring him back. So then he goes to Tampa on a one-year prove-it deal. Again, I don't know what the market was. It's not really good for safeties. We know that. But he wasn't a fit. So look, Ryan Neal works. He has man coverage ability, but he's great in zone as a safety. I'm throwing this year away. That's not who he is. I think he's close to the 2022 player. And with that said, because the 2023 year is, most recent, it's on film, it's out there, teams will probably not go after him in a huge safety market. And to me, if the Rams are not trying to spend top dollar, but, find a bargain bin option, this guy fits the bill. Ryan Neal kind of reminds me a little bit of Akeem Witherspoon in a sense because, Akeem also came from the Seahawks, had a cup of coffee with them, as I said before. But Akeem had kind of a down year because of the injuries, right? Before he came to the Rams, his stock was very low. They got him at $1 million, 1 year, prove-it deal. And he did a great job being the starter, playing all 17 games, playing through injury, starting 18 because he started in the playoffs. The thing about Akeem is that he played really well for the Steelers, but that last year he dealt with injury and then was done pretty much the whole year. So now you look at a guy like Ryan Neal, who was elite in 2022 and then just, struggled for whatever reason in 2023. You could get him for cheap. We'll see what happens there. Comes in at 27. 26 here, we have Jonathan Grenard, the Texans pass rusher. The Texans also, they have Will Anderson. And they also went out and they got Derek Barnett, So they went out and got Derek Barnett, and Grenard still had a really good year, great season, much improved player, much better against the run. I don't think you're not looking at a guy that's going to be a dominant pass rusher, but he's pretty rock solid, I would say. He'd be a really good 2 option. I don't know about giving him elite money. He comes in at 26 here. I like him. I don't love him for the Rams. That's why he's not higher on this list. Number 25 is an edge defender who because he was a big name. I mean, the Saints traded 2 first-round picks to go up and get him. That is Marcus Davenport. This is somebody who has shined, and he has really flashed. He's got great 3-4 outside linebacker body composition. The issue with Marcus Davenport is he had a season-ending injury that cut his year short. And unfortunately, he was playing on a 1-year prove-it deal, so that value could be even lower. I think he is a potential boom or bust option, but mainly a boom because how can he bust if you're signing him for cheap? So he's coming off a season-ending injury, but Davenport has all the physical tools. I think that would be an interesting pickup. Plus, he's had a good season in the past. He had 9.5 sacks 2 years ago. I mean, this is somebody that's a good pass rusher. He's not elite, but he's good, and he's still young. I think the Rams should definitely consider that at 25. Number 24, I really debated whether or not to keep him on this list. That is Stephon Gilmore, okay? Gilmore, older corner, still wicked consistent, and he's a force. You talk about him just physically, he can press you at the line of scrimmage. He can get in your face. He can body you, and he's still really good. My concern is he's 33. My other concern is that I'd say Akeem Witherspoon played a better season than he did this past year. So is he really an upgrade? And if you get Gilmore, that's going to be about $10 million, I would imagine, at the very least, because he's a big name and he's still playing at a high level. I don't know if the Rams are going to go that route. It's why he's not higher. I have him at 24. Number 23 here, we have Jeff Okudah. To me, some people are going to push back here, say Okudah's a bust, move on from him. He's not it. Okudah's still wicked young. He's got crazy tools. The potential is there. Is he worth the risk? That depends on the price tag. If he's trying to get upwards $14 million or anything over 5, I would say probably no. But if you're willing to kick the tires on a guy who has really the perfect size for a cornerback position, he's got great athleticism, and he's an option because he was drafted in the first round, but people always forget about it. Why did this guy fall off so quick? Well, he didn't really get a chance to start his career. His second year, he tore his Achilles. So I saw this past year, he was starting to get that confidence back, very fluid mover. This is somebody that might get paid big because of his age, but he does have that familiarity, with Aubrey Pleasant. That could maybe get him to come to the Rams. I think if Okudah is developed, he's going to be one of the best corners in football. I know it sounds crazy, but we've seen corners go from zero to hero. He was drafted very high for a reason. He is a bust according to the definition of a bust, but his story is not written, and I would like him in LA if they could swing it. He comes in at number 23. So quick break here, just letting you guys know that this episode or this video is brought to you by Mantis Sleep. That's right, 100% blackout sleep mask. If you're having a hard time sleeping, put on a mask. You can go and do that over at Mantis Sleep. The link is in the description. Get that 10% off your purchase using promo code JKBogan. The Mantis Sleep mask I always hold up is, of course, the sleep mask, the sound mask, and really what that allows you to do, you hook it up to your phone, 20 plus hours of battery life. You got these razor thin speakers, and C-shaped eye cups allow you to even sleep on your side. Use these on your side, listen to podcasts, listen to music, whatever helps you get to sleep. It's a great thing, so I recommend it. Once again, Mantis Sleep, 10% off using promo code JKBogan. Now back to the show. So, number 22. This one's a different one, okay? This is a guy who could be a lot higher on some people's boards. For me, I still don't know what direction the Rams want to go in. I don't know how big age is going to play into this. Looking at who they signed a guy who's almost 30 in Demarcus Robinson to a 1-year deal, and they've signed Kevin Dotson to a 3-year deal, who is 27 right now. So, what's the deal there? What's it going to look like? That's the question. So number 22 is an older pass rusher, Darius Smith, 32 years old, excuse me. He's a 32-year-old pass rusher. He's going to give you 50 to 70 pressures a year with the Browns. Really good. The question remains, though, first off, is he good enough in the run game? Is he consistent enough in the run game? Byron Young is not an elite run defender. You can't have two guys that struggle in the run game, although I will say Byron Young got a lot better as the season went on. So, to be fair, if you're going to get Byron Young, a guy next to him, Darius Smith would have to step up in the run game. 50 to 70 pressures a year, though, is not something the Rams saw this year. So Darius Smith is definitely an option, but he's not higher up because of of course, the age and the fact, again, he's just not great in the run game. What you see is what you get with him. Very good pass rusher, consistent, has a variety of different maneuvers to get to the quarterback, but he's not great in the run, and that is a little bit of a concern for me. That's why he comes in at number 22. Number 21, we have a safety who I mentioned on the underrated list. We are talking about Alohi Gilman. Now, I understand some people would push back and say, you know what, all these great safeties, I don't want to bargain bin hunt at safety. I want to go after Justin Simmons. I want to go after Kevin Byer. I want to go after Eddie Jackson. And we'll probably be talking about those guys soon. But if the Rams are trying to bargain bin shop and they're not trying to pay out the wazoo for a safety, since historically they don't do that, I do think they might want Jordan Fuller back, worth mentioning. But Alohi Gilman, underrated, 27 years old, 27, 28, not getting talked about nearly enough. And he's coming off his best year, okay? This guy was really good for the for the Chargers, other LA team. And I'm really wondering if Gift Smith, who of course was with the Chargers last year as the interim head coach, could lure somebody like that over. I don't know for sure, but one thing I will say, Gilman was just playing in a Brandon Staley defense. Brandon Staley's defense obviously has a lot of life still in that Rams building. They're still pretty much using that type of thing. So his ability in zone coverage is definitely a thing. He's one of the better zone coverage safeties from 2023, and I think he could be an option for the Rams. I like him a lot at 21. We've hit the top 20. Number 20, last year's Rams starting safety, Jordan Fuller. He could be back. He might not be back. There's a chance. I think it's 50-50. This guy's very underrated, okay? I didn't realize it. After further review, after watching the film and whatnot, there were some, missed opportunities. I look back at the Eagles game. You have Akeem Witherspoon getting kind of caught up in between him, trying to, communicate. Jordan Fuller doesn't make that communication. And, of course, there's a touchdown, Dallas Goedert. There were some of those moments last year. But all in all, Jordan Fuller had a really underrated 2023. And I would say if he was healthy for the playoff game, the Rams probably win. Now, there are other avenues the Rams probably win if this and this and this happened, but not having Jordan Fuller mattered, I will say that. I think he could be retained even more. So I'm going to say it's probably a 60-40 shot he's back, because this safety class is insane. It's probably one of the craziest safety classes I've ever seen. And there are players not listed on this list that are very much in play at safety that are older. I don't know if the Rams will, go after them. I don't know if they're the best fit, but there are still guys that I'm not going to mention that are part of that giant safety class. So because of that, all the attention being taken away from guys like Alohi Gilman and Jordan Fuller, I find it interesting. I like Fuller at 20 here. Number 19 is a guy that you probably heard so many times. I wanted the Rams to trade for him at the deadline. I've been a fan of his since, scouting him coming out of Michigan. I'm talking about Josh Uche from the New England Patriots. When you look at Uche, he had an incredible 2022. He was always kind of used like rotationally. It's weird because to me, he's a full-time player. He's good against the run. He's really good in the pass game, obviously rushing the passer, but he can drop into coverage. Like he's closer to that, like, not saying he is Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons being that hybrid edge inside linebacker, he's like that. And so for me, I don't really understand what this 2023 year was. It was a down year, I could tell you that, for Josh Uche, but I'm not sure where it really came from. I'll say this, a guy that we mentioned, Mac Wilson Sr., moved to edge. He's in the underrated video. He moved to edge, took away some reps from Uche, so that could have had something to do with it. So he just fell out of favor of the coaching staff, but he's so talented. And if Uche, figures it out and he has the consistency and everything, he's still young, he could be a star on the Rams. I believe that. I am a very big fan of his game, and I think with the Rams coaching, he could be something, but we'll see what ends up happening. He comes in at 19. Number 18 is a name that we've already talked about, I think this week, if not last week. Time sure flies, doesn't it? Darius Williams, former Rams corner, leaving the Jaguars. Jaguars cut him. He is available right now. The Rams could go out and sign him right before free agency if they wanted to. He is a free agent. Could a reunion be in the works? I think it's certainly possible. He had some really good years with the Rams. He was there for, 4 years? So that matters. He won a Super Bowl there. Another thing, he's outstanding in zone coverage. He's one of the best zone coverage corners in the entire league. Okay, so he would fit. Now, the question is, do you want a 5'9" guy being out there, especially he's getting older? Do you want him to be out on the boundary? And that remains to be seen. I do think, based on last year, a couple of those passes where you have a longer corner and they don't get caught, but they got caught on, say, a Duke Shelley or, a Darion Kendrick, you might want a little bit more length on the outside. And so with that said, I'm not sure if Darius Williams is 100% going to fit that bill. And I know that they feel good about Kobe Durant potentially being that slot corner, but Darius Williams, if it's possible, he's already shown he could be a very good corner in LA. He comes in at 18. Number 17, he was a hero in 2022. He was absolutely fantastic as a safety. He's really grown from being a 7th rounder out of Arkansas to becoming one of the better players at his position. He's known as an enforcer in the run game, huge in run support, but got a lot better in coverage last year in 2022. This past year in 2023, however, he struggled because, the team really struggled. I'm talking about the Washington Commanders' Cameron Curl. I think he could be an option for the Rams. I don't know what his value is going to be. I think before the market kind of blew up with all these names, Cameron Curl had a chance to make around $13 million a year. Now I don't know. If he became affordable, though, his run support is no joke. He could really help in the run game, stopping the run. So I like Cameron Curl a lot. I think he's an underrated cover guy. But again, he's an enforcer. He could be like a captain of your defense. If you lose a guy like Fuller, you still need that in your defense. And I think you get that with Cameron Curl, who comes in at 17. Number 16, we're sticking with safeties here, if you guys don't mind. It's going to be Eddie Jackson from the Bears. He was released. Eddie Jackson had some great production in the Vic Fangio defense back when he was there. Elite athlete. I've seen some of the most wild plays with him. You look back, all 22. I remember one that stands out the most. You have Sam Bradford trying to go deep down the left sideline, and you have Eddie Jackson showing single high safety. And what happens is it's just man coverage, down the sideline. Eddie Jackson comes over on the other side of the field and cuts off that pass and picks off Sam Bradford with the Arizona Cardinals. I'll never forget that play because it perfectly encapsulated what Eddie Jackson was when he was fully healthy. His issue has been health, but when he's healthy, he is an elite athlete. He has an elite understanding of obviously NFL offenses and just coverages and things like that. So, you can see it. Very high, intelligent guy. And this Rams defense, I'm going to keep saying it, is derivative of a Fangio scheme. He would make some sense. It's a little different, but I'd like to see him get used. Eddie Jackson could be a really good fit for the Rams. He comes in at 16. Number 15 here at the halfway point, we have Kevin Byer from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's actually meeting with the Bears, speaking of the devil. But Byer, he is a free agent. He was traded by the Titans to the Eagles. Eagles were hoping to win a Super Bowl. It did not work out that well. But Byer is still one of the best safeties in the game. He is 30, but he's very quality. All around the board, you're getting a guy that can help in the run game. You're getting a guy that can help in coverage. This is somebody that really wants to pick the ball off and take it to the house. He wants to be the enforcer in the game, that game breaker. Could be a help for the Rams. It was definitely a team that could have used more turnovers, creating more opportunities for that offense that was top 10 last year, but he comes in at number 15. Number 14, we're sticking with the safety position. We got Justin Simmons, who was just released by the Broncos. We're not really sure what the Broncos are doing, but they are creating a lot of cap space. They did just trade away Jerry Jeudy. Of course, they let go of Justin Simmons and they let go of Russell Wilson. So they're trying to create some cap space, turn over a new leaf. Here's the thing that Simmons brings to the table that's better than Byer and Eddie Jackson. Simmons played in a Ram-style defense. It's not just derivative. Simmons played with, of course, Fangio. He played with not just Fangio, but Evero. Evero is probably the most likely. He's going to run the closest thing to what the Rams are doing. So I love that experience there. I think he'd be a great fit. If John Johnson came back, he'd be excited. That's a guy from Boston College, John Johnson's alma mater. I believe he did play with Simmons. Simmons is really good. Okay. Is Simmons still, top 3 in the league at safety? I don't know. I think there's a chance even Byard's better, but I think Simmons is a better fit. It just depends on price, but he comes in at 14 here. Number 13 is a cornerback that Sean McVay is familiar with. He fits the Rams well, in my opinion. He's a leader. He's consistent. McVay was on the team back when he was on the team in 2016. I'm talking about Washington Commanders' Kendall Fuller. Fuller was drafted in 2016, which is the last year that Sean McVay was on the Washington Redskins at the time. So with that said, I think we just saw a really rough year, okay? They traded their pass rushers at the deadline, both Montez Sweat and Chase Young. I think Kendall Fuller offers enough in coverage and also just the understanding in zone and that leadership to be a really good option if the Rams do lose Akeem Witherspoon. But even if they don't, I like the idea of pairing those two together. Kendall Fuller's really good, underrated. He's one of the highest, ranked corners last year, according to PFF. I like him here at number 13. Number 12, this is going to be getting some pushback. He is the cover guy for this video. You're probably like, well, who is that? Why is he wearing 24? I'm talking about Jadeveon Clowney, who for whatever reason wore 24 this past year for the Ravens. He had a great year. We're talking about a guy, with over, 70 pressures. This is somebody, I go back and forth every year. It seems like, oh yeah, the Rams should go after him. The Rams shouldn't. And he's a mercenary. He's not going to take anything, more than a 1-year deal. I think he likes bouncing around and playing on different teams. But what I'll say is this: if the Rams really need kind of a backup plan, if they swing and miss on some of the bigger names, Jadeveon Clowney, he is older. He is in his 30s. But the thing about Clowney is that he is going to give you that pressure because he's really developed as a pass rusher. But more importantly, the thing that excites me, the reason why he is literally 10 spots ahead of Zarius Smith, despite the fact they do the same thing, is that he is so good in the run game. And when you have that discipline in the run game, that is hard to come by. Clowney has really turned out a really good career after being heavily scrutinized for essentially his lack of effort. I think there's plenty of effort when you watch the tape. I have no effort concerns with Clowney. I think it'd be kind of funny to see it come full circle. The Rams of course, didn't have a chance at drafting Clowney because they picked 2. But it'd be funny to see them get Clowney in the same draft that, they got Aaron Donald. He comes in at 12. Number 11 here is the second to last safety I'm going to talk about. Gino Stone, also from the Ravens. You need interceptions. We know the Rams do. He had 7 this past year. I think when you look at a guy like Gino Stone, only 24 years old right now, flying under the radar a little bit more for a guy that had 7 interceptions, Stone was kind of the third safety there. And that's the thing, is that you have Kyle Hamilton, and, that's the thing. When you look at Gino Stone, he wasn't playing as the guy. So keep in mind, if you sign him, he might not get 7 interceptions as the guy, but he's a good player, worked really well in zone coverage. I think he fits the Rams schematically. My only concern here with Gino Stone is that what's the price tag going to look like? And are you really going to tell me that he doesn't end up with Seattle and, going and playing for Mike McDonald, who left, the defensive coordinator, staying with the Ravens, or going to the Titans and playing with Denard Wilson, who coached him in the cornerback room? That's the thing. I don't necessarily think it's realistic to assume he's available, but if he is, I'm sure the Rams will give it a really strong look. He comes in at 11. We have now hit the top 10 here. Number 10, inside linebacker Blake Cashman. He just had the best year of his career. I've been a fan of his since Minnesota. He was my number 1 linebacker that draft. Just great against the run. He's really improved, especially in the passing game. That athleticism, he ran a 4.5 flat. You can definitely see that on tape. It shows up in coverage. He can blitz. I think he'd be a great option. He was one of the top 5 inside linebacker grades according to PFF this year. Great player. I think he's underrated. I think he should have definitely been a Pro Bowler and should have had all-pro consideration. Coming off a huge year in Houston, wouldn't be surprised if the Texans bring him back, but Blake Cashman next to Ernest Jones would feed families. You just don't realize it yet. He comes in at 10. Number 9 here, speaking of another tandem that would feed families, Tyrell Dodson from the Bills would be feeding families if he was next to Ernest Jones. Dodson is a young rising star. He's younger than Cashman, and he was also great last year. I don't understand why the Bills would let him go. Then again, the GM of the Bills did come out and say he didn't want to become the Rams and fall off, apparently acting like they didn't win a Super Bowl or anything, and then now they're getting rid of all their guys. So Tyrell Dodson should 100% get a good deal, but he won't. And the reason I think Dodson and Cashman will be cheaper options is because you have guys like Patrick Queen and Devin White and Jordan Brooks that are overshadowing those guys as far as big names that I don't think are as good. So could be a really nice option there. Huge value for the Rams if they go in this direction. I think they'd fit the scheme like a glove, both of them. I think Dodson is the better cover guy. So because of that, I think Dodson's the better cover guy. For that reason, I have him just a tick above Blake Cashman. Also, the age came into it. He comes in at 9. Number 8 is edge defender from the Jets, Bryce Huff. I covered the Jets, as I always say. I covered him 2 years ago now, and I immediately loved this guy out of Memphis, Bryce Huff. To me, Huff is a great story coming from UDFA and becoming a premier pass rusher in the league. But the problem is he has one of the best pass rush win rates in the NFL. He is really just a pass rusher, though. It's not to say he can never play the run, but he is not an every down guy. And the Jets told you that based on how that they, developed him, how they, proceeded on with him. So if you pay him a lot of money, just know you're probably paying just a designated rusher. Okay, this guy is not great in the run game. If you feel like you can develop him, he's still young, but paying him top dollar, I would not do that. However, he's so damn good, and he was one of the best rushers this year in terms of win rate. I believe he was in the top 5. He was among the league leaders. You're talking about Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and so forth. He was up there. So it's worth mentioning that he was up there, and I'm a big fan of his game. I don't know if he's the best fit for the Rams, but he wouldn't be a bad player. Let's just say that. He comes in at 8. Number 7, I think, is a better fit. played in the Vic Fangio scheme this past year, had his best year of his career. I'm talking about Andrew Van Ginkel, who did show up like Dodson and Cashman on the underrated video. When you look at AVG, you see a guy that's a Swiss Army knife. He had over 50 pressures this year. I think he'd be a great fit. He's got the length. We saw it at Wisconsin. We saw it translate to the NFL. He is an underrated player, and you could kind of throw him all over the place. You could throw him at linebacker. You could throw him at outside linebacker. He can drop into coverage. Very athletic. He can pick off passes. He can strip the ball out. He can go and run with it. He takes him back for touchdowns. He's just very aware. He's a very high IQ player, and he's just one of those guys you want in your locker room. So he comes in at 7, and maybe that might be a little bit lower for a guy that I think brings so much to the table. And I think the price tag just isn't going to be as high as it should be. Comes in at 7. Number 6 is the Rams 2023 starting cornerback, Akeem Witherspoon. Currently, he is going to be a free agent. It doesn't look like the Rams will get a deal done before free agency. But we talked to Akeem, Alexis and I did, on the Downtown Rams podcast. He made it clear he wants to come back to the Rams, and I think it definitely makes a lot of sense. Great fit. He had to fill the giant shoes of Jalen Ramsey, and I thought he did a great job. What people fail to realize is they look at the end of last year and say, well, when push came to shove, he struggled. He was dealing with a groin injury. He played through it, didn't complain, didn't make a big deal, but he played through it. Before the groin injury, he was pretty shut down. He shut down just about everybody, and it took until the Giants game to give up his first 100 yards of his career in a game. He's a very good corner. He knows the scheme. He's got crazy long arms, great speed, just the overall body composition, the length. It's one of the, I think it's the best size and speed combo that you're going to find in free agency. He comes in at 6. Number 5, we have made it to the top 5. I have 49er edge defender Chase Young. And look, I understand some people are really going to push back against this. And again, I get it. But when looking at Chase Young, I just saw somebody, I understand people have issues with his effort and whatnot. I just don't see it as much as everyone else does. I see a guy who's going to be 25 next month. He's got incredible talent. He's come back from his injuries, and he looks really good. Looked good in the Super Bowl. Looked good on the Niners. Looked good on Washington before he was traded. You're talking about 60, 70, maybe even 80 pressures. This guy is really who I've always kind of looked at before I start overthinking things. This is the guy I looked at to be the guy that Aaron Donald passes the torch down to. He is an elite prospect. He's still, in my opinion, a prospect. He's not a draft prospect, but he's a, future star prospect. I think this is somebody that's still, guaranteed starter on any defense, but he has some things to work on. With that said, 25 next month, his body of work, the film really speaks for itself. He comes in at 5. Maybe he should even be higher. I think just the age, it's going to be really interesting to see what his market is, but do not rule the Rams out going after Chase Young. Comes in at 5. Number 4 here is the last safety on the board, and it is Xavier McKenna. A lot of people, including myself, were really surprised when the Giants did not sign him or did not even tag him. He is available. He's a game-changing safety. The Rams normally don't spend on this position, but he is so worth it because you're talking about a guy that's like Simmons, Byer, Jackson, does all those things well, but he's also a lot younger. So you'd be having him as like a franchise piece. Think of it in terms the way the Chargers have Derwin James. Some teams really like to have that elite safety to kind of set the tone. McKenna has crazy range. I think he's too good to pass up on if they can make him, come down to a good deal. Maybe 12 to 14 million, we'll see. But he comes in at 4 because he's a hell of a player. Final 3 here. Number 3, defensive lineman. I can't believe he's available. Dolphins, Christian Wilkins. They did not tag him. They let him go. He could come back. I don't know if he's going to, though. Stout run defender. Well known as one of the best run defending interior linemen in the league. Great player. And he could be an Aaron Donald replacement if needed. We don't forget, Aaron Donald is still, contemplating retirement. I mean, who knows? But even regardless if he retires or not, if the Rams could get Christian Wilkins next to Aaron Donald and put him into a defensive line room with Bobby Brown and Kobe Turner, Desjuan Johnson, that's looking pretty damn good. Number 2 here is Kansas City Chiefs defensive lineman Chris Jones, another option to replace Aaron Donald. I've already seen it mentioned in the the comments section. If Donald does retire, even if he doesn't retire, he's still older and he's already mentioned retirement multiple times. So when you factor that in, Chris Jones, in my opinion, would make some sense there. And I think, being that he's 29 years old, you could sign him to a 3-year deal, kind of what you did with Dotson, and have that kind of 26, 27, 2026, 2027 available to move on. So interesting one here. If he doesn't go back to the Chiefs did not tag him. That is an interesting one to look at. And last, but definitely not least, the number 1 player on the Rams defensive big board for free agency is none other than Vikings edge defender Denil Hunter. I think it goes without saying he's currently the best edge on the market. The Rams have the biggest need, in my opinion, is an edge defender. He is the Rams' number 1 target, okay? I think there's a chance that they could trade for Brian Burns, maybe a Josh Allen. They could trade for those guys. In another video, I will get to Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, break that down, whether that makes sense or not. That just came out, but that they're shopping them. But right now, realistically, we know the Vikings did not tag Denil Hunter. We know Denil Hunter is 29 years old. He had, 17 sacks this past year. He is an elite rusher. He's an elite athlete. He is somebody you put in SoFi Stadium wearing Rams horns, and people are going to go and pay money to see that, okay? He is a guy you can market as a franchise-altering player. So keep that in mind. We're talking about a really, really talented player, and Denil Hunter being the best edge on the market, the Rams having the biggest need at edge, and not having another guy opposite of Byron Young, a guy that can play the run, a guy that's great at just rushing the passer, can win with power, can win with speed, can force some fumbles. Denil Hunter, to me, is by far the number 1 option for the Rams. This is, of course, now that we know Josh Allen's not on the market, Brian Bird's not on the market. Of course, it's just free agency, keep in mind. And I think when you factor those things in, Denil Hunter is by far the best fit for the LA Rams coming out of free agency. And I would say, I'll go a step further. We had the offensive video. He is the best fit for the Rams, period, in free agency. And we're not talking about trades, but best fit in period in free agency is Denil Hunter. He might not be super young, okay? He's 29. He's not 25, 26. I get that. He's not Chase Young, but he's a lot better than Chase Young. And if the Rams are going to have this kind of smaller window that they've created with, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Matthew Stafford, we don't know how long all of them are going to play. We don't know if Stafford plays out his deal or not. What we do know is that with that, small window, a Denil Hunter signing a 3-year deal like what we saw with Kevin Dotson could make all the difference. So this is a game changer. He's my number 1. Who do you guys think? Some honorable mentions that did not make it, of course. Talk about guys like Leonard Floyd, reunion, maybe. Devin White did not make it. I'm just not as high on him as you guys are. Some of you guys. I don't know if everyone is really high on him. Eric Kendricks, inside linebacker. Does he, reunite with Gift Smith? I don't know. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Julian Blackman. Just some names to keep, in mind. Definitely not, any guarantees there or anything like that. Just honorable mentions that didn't make my top 30. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I am done with this segment. We are no longer going to be ranking free agents. We will do a case-to-case basis. So hearing about the Eagles shopping around Josh Sweat and, of course, Hassan Reddick, I'll do a video explaining my thoughts on that, kind of like what I did with the Bills free agents. So the more stuff that comes out, the more content will come out. But I appreciate you guys sticking with me, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and follow me on all social media at JK Bogan, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, folks. Later. Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.